Today I will talking about introspective and extrospective thinking because I never saw someone comparing these two and think that's a unique topic that has almost never been discussed. I never saw it, so I thought it was a pretty unique topic and yeah, now we can start. Areas with high degree of extrospective thinking: science, business, work, education, sports. Problem solving and thinking capacity based on external information: sight, touch, hearing, speech, etc. Extrospective thinking is the thinking that's important for outwardly focused attention, like solving physical, scientific, and structural problems and endeavors. That means that extrospective thinking is a thinking based primarily on visual, auditory, sensory, motor, and verbal information. Extrospective thinking is mostly dependent on these information carriers. It's also important to say that things like games or sports, like playing tennis or chess, even chess, because chess is processing of visual information and acting upon it. Also, table tennis is a very interesting example for this because when you play table tennis, there you have to calculate the angle where you're shooting at. You have to be conscious of what when the opponent shots comes to you, and you have to calculate where you want to shoot and where the ball will then go at to win the game. Intro and extrospective thinking. Areas with high degree of introspective thinking: philosophy, social, emotional, and social intelligence, emotional regulation, appropriate behavior, nested thinking, abstract thinking, metacognition, and theory of mind. Introspective thinking is the thinking used inside of our minds. It's based on more the abstract kind of thinking that's less reliant, what I will not call carrier information. That means visual, motor, auditive, sensations, etc., and focuses more on thought itself. That means non-physical understanding without being mostly associated with these external information carriers. And this is the type of thinking philosophers use because they often delve deep into abstract and existential topics and theories. It also comes in action when we think about our own thoughts and the thoughts of the others, especially the thoughts of others about our thoughts. Now, for example, if I'm currently talking and you are thinking maybe about what I'm talking about, and then my thought is that I'm thinking to myself, what are now the listeners thinking about my talk? And and if we take it further, I could think about what the listeners are thinking about what I'm thinking, and I'm saying what I'm thinking about what the listeners are thinking about what I'm thinking while saying it. That would be an example of an abstract nested thought that I am talking about. I think it shouldn't be too hard to understand, and I don't think it's a very complex thing if you think about it. Now we have another wonderful example of what I'm talking about, the introspective thinking I'm talking about, and this quote of Arthur Schopenhauer really greatly shows this when he says, "Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." That means he was able to assess internal thought processes and form and see with the abstract nested thinking, which led to this quote. Now that we have put both thinking styles into perspective, we can see that introspective thinking has a more and probably a lot of times higher PFC activity and higher degree of isolation of PFC activity. That means the activity focuses more on the prefrontal cortex than the other area, which are more active in the extrospective thinking that involves the sensory regions, occipital, temporal, and parietal lobe. That is important for processing external data. And I have to also say that the degree of isolation of the prefrontal cortex activity also this depends on the type of introspective thinking and um, and also the degree of activity between these two. And the extrospective thinking also depends on the type of extrospective thinking. But generally, you could say that the introspective one has a higher PFC activity and more isolated PFC activity. That's then important for philosophy, abstract reasoning, self-reflection, thinking about thinking. And the other one is important for scientific problem solving, practical decision making, spatial reasoning, and physical tasks.
Now we've talked too much about the details. Now I want to go more into detail of the to the PFC. The PFC can be considered the main core area where conscious thought processes are initiated. It is the seat of intellect and reason. As we can see in this picture, the human brain's cortex consists 29% of the PFC, and in the chimp it's about 17%. (11.5% in the gibbon and the macaque), 8.5% in the lemur, 7% in the dog, and 3.5% for the cat. You can here see that the reason why humans are really great and explored science and especially are great at introspective thinking is because we are the species with the largest PFC compared to the rest of the cortex. And I think in regards of introspective thinking, metacognition, theory of mind, self-reflection, we are really that this is really the most unique thing that makes humans, because extrospective thinking exists also in animals, but not as advanced as the ways we are doing it. And of course, that chimps have rudimentary ways of the introspective thinking, because they are the second largest mammal. They are the mammal with the second largest PFC compared to the size of the cortex. And yeah, the interesting thing is that and why it's not unplausible to think that the most unique thing about the human prefrontal cortex is introspective thinking, is because chimps even have some partially better, much better, in some areas much better cognitive performance in terms of raw extrospective thinking. But there's footage of a you can see it in a footage of a chimp beating an average man in terms of visual working memory. So I would say that this was the end of the topic, and I wanted to go more into detail in some things, but I think it is better to keep this simple in my first recording.